I'm Hannah, and before anything else, I want to ask you to subscribe to Keys of Prosperity now, because here you'll always receive exciting, intense, and revealing videos that will change the way you see prosperity, purpose, and destiny. And I want you to tell me in the comments where you're listening from, because this isn't just curiosity. This is a point of spiritual contact, and I literally want to release a prophetic prayer for your city, for your territory, for your spiritual geography, because the environment where you step influences your destiny. And today, in this chapter, we're going to delve deeply into a promise that was given to David, but today it's being fulfilled in you. There is a passage in 1 Chronicles 17 that needs to be seen not as ancient history, but as a prophetic snapshot of what God is silently designing for your life. God sends the prophet Nathan to tell David, "I took you from behind the villages. I took you from the field. I took you from what was small. I took you from the routine you thought was normal, and I placed you to govern my people." And the real key here is that God didn't say, "I'm going to take you." He said, "I took you." Because when God decides to change a destiny, He doesn't start from the future. He starts from the past. He cuts invisible roots. He alters the script code. He changes the internal map before revealing the external map. And I want you to feel this now. God isn't just preparing a great place. He's preparing you to occupy that great place. And that's why when you walk through the next doors He's opening, your first thought will be, "This is beautiful. This is extraordinary. This is too incredible." But it doesn't feel like my place. Because the change in reality always comes before the change in identity. And the most uncomfortable moment isn't when you're in the desert. It's when you enter the palace and don't know if you can sit down. It's when you step onto the level you've always dreamed of, but still feel the weight of who you were. But then comes the key that burns in my spirit. God looks at you and says what He said to David. It wasn't your reality. Now it is. Because God doesn't work in the realm of the possible. God works in the realm of the impossible. God doesn't work on the scale of what you imagine. He works on the scale of what you aren't even capable of imagining. Because if you could imagine it, it wouldn't be God. It would be human projection. It would be mental calculation. It would be expectation based on logic. And heaven doesn't operate by logic. Heaven operates by destiny. When you look at your past, you think you were alone. You think you were just surviving. You think you were winning battles through sheer strength. But verse 7 says, "I have been with you wherever you went, and I have protected you from all your enemies as you went forward." And that is a spiritual bombshell. Because God didn't promise to defend you when you arrived. He defended you while you were walking. Even when you thought you were walking alone. Even when you thought you were just surviving. Even when you thought you were fighting without cover. And do you know what that means? It means that even when you didn't understand anything, God was watching over you. Imagine now that you understand. Imagine now that you are aware of the movement He is making. Imagine now that you realize that nothing was random, that nothing was a coincidence, that nothing was a waste, that nothing was a failure. All of that was building internal territory for you to withstand the external territory that is coming. Because everything you experienced was secret training for the public stage that is coming. And before we move on to the next part, if your spirit is feeling, if this chapter is activating something within you, I want you to know about Reprogram a Mind. It's 7 days of guided audios to reprogram your mind for biblical prosperity and true abundance. The link is in the pinned comment. Now take a deep breath, because in the next part, I'm going to show you why the new level always seems too big at the beginning, and what that reveals about your destiny. There is a spiritual truth that almost no one dares to admit, and I want you to be honest with yourself now. Because this truth permeates even the strongest, the most prepared, the most intelligent. When God places you before something greater than you are used to, your first reaction is not gratitude, not celebration, not excitement. The first human reaction to a new level is discomfort, confusion, a feeling of inadequacy, fear of messing up, fear of not living up to expectations. It's almost as if you entered a huge room and thought, I shouldn't be here. As if something inside you tried to pull you back to the level you were at before. And this happens because your body carries emotional memories from your past. And your mind carries old narratives. And every time something too big appears before you, your subconscious tries to protect you from possible failure and tries to convince you that it's safer to go back to what you already know, even if that known place is smaller than the place God has prepared. And that's why you need to understand. When a large door opens, the attack is never from the door. The attack is from ain't, the internal narrative that tries to convince you to go back to the old. In other words, your emotional system tries to make it seem like it's too big, too beautiful, too elevated, too important, as if there were a label saying, this isn't for you. Exactly like you imagine someone entering a 5-star restaurant for the first time and automatically feeling small, uncomfortable, shy, looking around and thinking, people will realize that I don't belong in this world, that I don't have the code for this table, that I don't speak the language of this room, when in reality, you just haven't realized yet that God invited you to this table. And that's where heaven frustrates human logic. Because at this moment when fear tries to make you retreat, it's exactly the moment when God says, it wasn't your reality, now it is. And this phrase is a spiritual sentence because it doesn't speak of what you did or what you deserved. It speaks of what God decided. He's not asking if you feel ready. He's saying that He has placed you at a level that you don't yet recognize. And every new level requires a period of adaptation of identity to align with destiny. Understand what this means. What you call discomfort is the process of expanding your identity. What you call fear is your soul trying to protect itself from what it doesn't know. And what you call, this doesn't seem like me, is heaven forcing you to be reborn into a new version of yourself. That's why when God elevates you, you first feel smaller before you feel big. You first feel strange before you feel like you belong, because the Spirit arrives first, and identity comes later. So I want you to understand this now. You are not being placed behind large doors to feel small. You are being placed behind large doors so that your identity grows to the size of the promise. And that is why God showed you the palace before showing you the mirror, because if He showed you the mirror first, you would give up before entering. So He shows you the place, puts you inside the place, and then He works within you to make you feel like you belong in the place where He has already positioned you. And get ready. Because in the next part, I'm going to reveal something completely prophetic to you. God didn't just prepare you to enter bigger rooms. He covered you while you were still small. He silently defended you while you thought no one saw you. And when you understand this, you will understand why this new time cannot be wasted. There's a detail in this prophecy in 1 Chronicles 17 that makes me tremble inside. God didn't say He would protect David after he became king. God said, I have been with you everywhere you have gone. Meaning God didn't enter when David won. God entered when David was still nothing in human eyes. God didn't begin when the story became beautiful. God was there when no one applauded, when no one saw, when no one believed, when reality seemed too small, when life seemed too normal. And that changes everything, because it means that God doesn't love you for the stage. God loves you for the journey. You thought you were fighting alone? You thought you were surviving by sheer force? You thought it was you against the world. But while you believed that, heaven was working behind the curtain, closing traps you didn't even see forming, cutting toxic alliances you still thought were innocent, blocking doors you thought you'd lost, but which were actually traps to destroy you. And you can't even imagine how many spiritual battles God won for you while you simply lived your day as if nothing was happening. And that's exactly why you're entering this new season now. Because if you had received this level before, you would have been destroyed by the same forces that God needed to defend you from in secret. You would have believed in the wrong people. You would have allied yourself with the wrong people. You would have built on the ground of someone who didn't want your good. But God knew that while you didn't yet have the emotional strength to bear the weight of what He was going to do, He needed to shield you. He needed to hide you. He needed to protect you. He needed to mature you, even if you didn't realize it. This is why doors you begged to open remained closed. This is why people you swore were part of your destiny didn't continue walking with you. This is why relationships and businesses that seemed certain broke down before they even solidified. Because if God had allowed it, the plan would have turned into captivity, and you would have entered the new era with old alliances that would destroy the future. So when you thought God was delaying you, God was protecting you. And now I want you to feel this deeply. Everything you've experienced up to this point has been shielding, calibration, filtering, emotional and spiritual preparation, so that when you enter the next level, you don't enter vulnerable, you don't enter insecure, you don't enter with a feeling of debt to the past. You enter with clarity, because God has been in every place you've been. He saw banks, he saw roads, he saw doors, he saw people, and he said, "This one I won't lose. This one I won't give up. He is mine. She is mine, and nobody touches what is mine." And now, what is happening is a change in spiritual code. What was silent defense is becoming public exaltation. What was invisible protection is becoming visible positioning. And what was survival is becoming the inauguration of destiny. Because heaven did not sustain you until now to leave you in the same place. And when this becomes public, when this turning point becomes evident, your testimony will make a noise. And that is what I will reveal to you now in the next part. Because you need to understand, God doesn't work with what you imagine. He works with what you never dared to imagine. And that's when the whole world begins to realize that God's hand was upon you all this time. And that's when the supernatural ceases to be theory and becomes living proof before everyone. God is an expert at creating scenarios that no human could calculate. He doesn't take a piece of the future and fit it into the present. He takes an entire reality and throws it at you all at once. That's why when it arrives, it's frightening. When it arrives, it makes you tremble. When it arrives, your mind tries to reject it because it doesn't know where to place something so out of the ordinary, so illogical, so beyond statistics. Because divine prosperity isn't a reward, it's a revelation of identity. And when it manifests, you will have no doubt, because there won't be enough human explanation to justify what's happening. It will be so far above normal that you yourself will be silent for a few seconds, trying to organize your breathing. And when that happens, you will realize that God doesn't work within your mental limits. He surpasses them. He tears through the ceiling. He goes beyond what you projected. He doesn't ask you if you think it's possible. He surprises you in such an absurd way that you can only say, "That wasn't me. That wasn't luck. That wasn't an attempt. That wasn't networking. That was God." And it is precisely at this point that he loves to operate. He loves to operate in the humanly impossible, so that the impossible becomes spiritual proof. He loves to operate where your math fails, where your logic breaks down, where your argument doesn't hold up, because it is there that he shows that heaven is not theory. Heaven is a real impact on matter. Understand this. The Bible says that God would make David's name known among the great, not because David sought fame, but because God wanted to use his story to amplify divine glory. And that's what will happen to you. Your name will arrive before you physically arrive. Doors will be opened before you knock. People will speak of your name before you appear. Environments will call to you before you enter. And the only explanation will be, heaven decided to project you. And when heaven decides to project someone, there is no human obstacle capable of preventing it. This means that your testimony will not be discreet. It will not be hidden. It will not be timid. It will make noise. It will be commented on. It will be noticed. It will be quoted, because the glory will not be yours. It will be God's, seen through you. And when they ask, "Who is this person?" you will answer the same as David would. "It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is who is in me." Because identity is not in the name. It is in the presence. And when you understand this, you take a gigantic weight off your shoulders because you realize that you don't need to sustain what God is doing. God sustains what He Himself initiated. And when someone tries to understand how you got here, when they try to trace your trajectory, when they try to explain your turning point, when they try to sum up your journey, they won't be able to find a replicable formula because there is no formula for miracles. There is surrender, there is obedience, there is faith, there is alignment, and there is an invisible force that takes an anonymous person and places them before kings, not because they did marketing, but because God decided it was time. And when God decides it's time, He puts the person at the center of the stage without asking permission from any system. Perhaps you haven't realized it yet, but everything God is aligning now is a spiritual engineering so that the Sabbath of your life may arrive, that time when everything makes sense, when everything connects, when everything becomes clear, when everything fits together. That moment when you look back and understand why doors closed, why people left, why tears fell, why nights weighed heavily, why deserts existed. And when that moment arrives, you will look to the sky and say, "Now I understand. Now I see. Now I comprehend that the impossible was only being prepared." And now that your spirit is understanding the greatness of what is being released, I need to guide you to a practical moment. Because it's no use listening without activating. It's no use understanding without declaring. And that's why in the next chapter, I'm going to take you to a guided practice where your words will open space for heaven to align you emotionally, mentally, and spiritually to the level He is bringing. So take a deep breath, because now we are going to activate prosperity, not as an idea, but as a living decree. Close your eyes now, and allow your breath to stabilize as if the Spirit itself were reorganizing your emotional field, as if the heavens were literally adjusting frequencies within you. Because this moment is not motivation. This moment is not positive psychology. This moment is spiritual alignment, and I want you to repeat each phrase with me aloud, because a declared word is a decree released in the spiritual world, and everything that is a decree released with faith becomes matter. And everything that becomes matter changes destiny. So repeat with me now. Money doesn't own me. It's just a tool, and I choose to govern this tool with divine wisdom. I wasn't born to survive. I was born to multiply. I don't chase money. I attract resources because I carry purpose. Abundance doesn't pressure me. It accompanies me. Prosperity is not a burden. Prosperity is fluidity. I don't serve money. I serve the God who transforms stories. I am not afraid of the future because the Creator of the universe governs my future. Money doesn't own me. It's just a tool, and I choose to govern this tool with divine wisdom. I wasn't born to survive. I was born to multiply. I don't chase money. I attract resources because I carry purpose. Abundance doesn't pressure me. It accompanies me. Prosperity is not a burden. Prosperity is fluidity. I don't serve money. I serve the God who transforms stories. I am not afraid of the future because the Creator of the universe governs my future. Now let's move on to the second layer. Repeat more strongly. My mind is being reprogrammed now to think like someone who governs, not like someone who begs. I'm being connected with doors I didn't even know existed. I am worthy of living well. I am worthy of prospering. I am worthy of abundance. My prosperity does not come from my effort, but from my alignment with God. I now release all patterns of scarcity inherited from the past. I'm receiving the new code for my financial destination now. Now declare prophetically about money itself. Money, you don't control me. I command you. You will move freely through my life without fear, without guilt, and without burden. You bow before the purpose. You submit to the Spirit. You bow before the Word. I will multiply everything I touch because I carry the mark of loyalty. I am fertile ground, and everything God puts in my hand bears fruit effortlessly. Money, you don't control me. I control you. You will move freely through my life without fear, without guilt, and without burden. You bow before the purpose. You submit to the Spirit. You bow before the Word. I will multiply everything I touch because I carry the mark of loyalty. I am fertile ground, and everything God puts in my hand bears fruit effortlessly. Now breathe and feel the change. Because at this very moment, your body is assimilating, your emotions are absorbing, your mind is rewriting codes, and heaven is authorizing what your mouth is declaring. And if this practice has activated something within you, I want to invite you now, with love and clarity, to access Reprogram a Mind. It's 7 consecutive days of mind reprogramming audios for biblical prosperity. Each audio is a layer of this transformation. Each audio unlocks a code. And if what you felt here was already strong, inside you will feel twice as much, because it's a daily, guided, and progressive immersion. Now, before we move on to the next part, take a deep breath, because what I'm about to reveal to you isn't just about open doors, but about how God makes your name reach you before you do, about the moment when honor meets its destiny, about the point where heaven projects you in a way that no human force can stop it. And if you thought it was intense up to this point, wait for what's coming next, because we're entering the zone where the impossible ceases to be a mystery and becomes a public signature. There is an invisible line between people who merely survive and people whom heaven decides to project, and that line is not a diploma. That line is not a network. That line is not human favor. That line is a celestial sentence. It is when God decides that your name will no longer be announced by you, but will be announced by Him. It is when the place where you are going has already heard of you before you set foot there. And this has no human explanation. This has no rational logic, because this is not a consequence of status. This is a consequence of purpose. It is when heaven decides that you will not be just another one, but will be a sign, will be proof, will be living evidence of God's action. And that's why I need you to understand this deeply. You're not being taken to high places to collect applause. You're being taken to high places to reveal the God that dwells within you. Because when someone asks, "Who is this person?" you will answer not with your resume, but with your spiritual consciousness saying, "I am the dwelling place of the presence. I am the house of the Most High. I am the living temple of the God who transforms destinies." Because when prosperity is true, nothing in it is about ego. Everything in it is about the manifestation of heaven through human vessels. And it is this detail that changes everything. Recognition will not be for who you are, but for who is in you, for who governs your mind, your heart, your decisions. And that is why people will be drawn to your story. Not because you made yourself visible, but because God decided to make you unmistakable. He chose your story as a billboard for His glory. He chose your testimony as a megaphone for transformation. And when He chooses someone, He doesn't ask for a man's opinion. He simply does it. And perhaps you haven't realized it yet. But all this work that the Spirit is doing within you has a final objective. When your testimony explodes, no one will be able to say it was a coincidence, because it will be so extraordinary that even skeptics will have to admit that something divine is at work. And all this will not be to inflate you. It will be to use you. It will not be to aggrandize you. It will be to position you. It will not be to make you an idol. It will be to make you an instrument of rescue, healing, and liberation for others. Now, I need to guide you to the last point before closing this message. There is a subtle, silent, invisible trap that destroys the destiny of people who were already on the path to prosperity. And this trap doesn't only affect those who don't believe. It affects even those who have faith. It affects even those who pray. It affects even those who read the Bible. It affects even those who have principles. And that's why many people don't realize when they lose their way, and only discover it when they've already strayed. And this trap has a name. The idolatry of money, not money itself, but the place it occupies, not the amount, but the function, not the resource, but the throne that the heart sometimes surrenders to it without realizing it. And this is the most dangerous boundary of prosperity, because whoever crosses this line loses everything, loses peace, loses direction, loses purpose, loses spiritual sensitivity. So stay with me, because in the next chapter I'm going to show you the most important question you need to answer before moving forward. And this question can determine whether you will thrive with purpose or whether you will get stuck without realizing it. There's a truth that can't be softened. The Bible doesn't say that money is the root of all evil. It says that the love of money is the root of all evil, because it's not the resource itself that contaminates. It's the place that the resource occupies in the heart, and that's exactly why there are poor people who are already slaves to money, and there are rich people who are completely free, because freedom isn't a bank balance. Freedom is a spiritual position. Freedom is when you use money as a tool, and not as an identity. Freedom is when you prosper without bowing down. Freedom is when you grow without getting sick. Freedom is when you rise without losing your essence. And why does this matter now? Because God is taking you to a level where there will be more doors, more opportunities, more resources circulating, and the test will not be how much you will have. The test will be how much you will continue to be governed by God, because biblical prosperity is not about having more than before. It is about continuing to recognize that everything still comes from the same place. From heaven, from the source, from the presence, from the sustaining rock, from the God who builds, from the God who pours out, from the God who chose you to live the testimony that will make a noise. And I want you to leave a comment here right now, if you feel this word is burning something inside you. I want you to just write this word, Amen. Because when you comment, you're not interacting with a video. You're sealing a spiritual decision. You're saying to heaven, God remains on the throne of my heart. And that declaration is an act of spiritual warfare, because when you publicly decide that God rules your heart, you disarm every invisible arrow that tries to lead you astray. And before we move on to the final chapter, I want you to subscribe to this channel now if you haven't already, because here you will never walk alone. Here you will never lack living words. Here you will always find nourishment for the mind and spirit. And I want to accompany you on this journey. Chapter after chapter, truth after truth, until the seeds you are receiving here become real fruits in your daily life. Because prosperity is not an event. Prosperity is a process. Prosperity is a journey. Prosperity is daily spiritual construction. And now that you've said, Amen, now that you've taken a stand, now that you're aware, I want you to stay a little longer, because what I'm going to reveal to you in the next part is the final seal of this message. It's the point where faith and neuroscience meet. It's the point where the Bible and the mind unite. It's the point where you understand that prosperity is not luck, it's mental structure, and that everything we've experienced so far wasn't theory, it was a profound reconfiguration that's already underway within you. The next chapter is short, but it is the prophetic closing of this message. It is the final signature. It is the spiritual stamp on this revelation, and I want you to stay with me until the very last second, because it doesn't just conclude, it activates. Get ready. The final chapter is when everything falls into place. Prosperity doesn't begin when money arrives. Prosperity begins when your mind changes, because the Bible calls this a renewal of understanding, and science calls it neuroplasticity. But heaven has always known that you don't live what you desire, you live what you unconsciously believe. So when God changes your mindset, He changes your reality, He changes your choices, He changes your connections, He changes your decisions, He changes your attitudes, and slowly, everything around you begins to align with a new frequency, a new expectation, a new internal pattern that begins to attract results compatible with the promise. And if this word resonated with you, if the Spirit ignited something within your heart, then celebrate silently now, because a deep seed has been planted. Because this wasn't just a video. This wasn't just content. This was a transition platform. This was a spiritual stepping stone. This was a change of course. This was an adjustment of destiny. Because there are places where God only takes you after your mind is prepared. And today, your mind took a real step in that direction. Today, your spirit positioned itself. Today, your heart received a new code. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for walking with me this far. Because your presence here was not a coincidence. Your presence here was an answer from heaven. You are part of this spiritual family. And with each chapter you watch, you join more and more the people that God is awakening to a new time of life, of consciousness, of wisdom, of freedom, of balanced and eternal prosperity. And I pray that this revelation continues to echo within you far beyond the screen, during the day, during the night, while you walk, while you sleep. If you want to experience this in an even deeper, more practical and daily way, I invite you, with love and spiritual intention, to learn about Reprogram a Mind. It's a 7-day program of guided audios to reprogram your mind for biblical, neuroscientific, and spiritual abundance. The link is pinned in the comments. If you feel this is your next step, follow your intuition, follow your faith, follow your inner guidance, because whoever listens to God's voice never goes back. See you in the next video. Infinite gratitude.